Hello guys, today we are going to check the differences that exist between the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous, that are the following tenses that we are going to add to the tools that are going to help us with our narrative stories. Okay, the present perfect, remember that as we check at the very beginning of the semester, it is that tense that establishes a relation between the past and the present. Remember that normally the main use that we are giving to this tense is that you are talking about meaningful experiences or changes that have taken place in your lives. Okay, they are going to be well, you are going to use it a lot. You are going to use the present perfect a lot for when you want to talk about the meaningful experiences of the characters in your stories. That is the importance of the tenses that we are going to be discussing today. Okay, so those are the uses that you are going to have for the present perfect, specifically the present perfect simple, because we are going to start with the present perfect simple. Normally, for example, when you use it, you are talking about experience. Remember that we are talking about life experiences, and in that sense, present perfect can be a synonym of I have the experience of. Okay, or also you can use it when you haven't had a certain experience yet. Okay, for example, when you say I have been to France, it means that you have had the experience of going to France. And when you say I have never been to France, it means that you haven't had that experience yet. But remember that everything has to do with the experiences that you have had along your life. The second use, also you are going to use it, for example, for when you want to express change over time. It means that you have seen something that along the time, or through time actually, from the past to the present, you have seen a change in that situation, in that thing. For example, when you say you have grown since the last time I saw you, it means that you have seen a change in that person since the past to the present. When you say, for example, the government has become more interested in arts education, what does that mean? That it has existed a change in the way of thinking of the government. So what we are observing here, remember, it is going to be a change that we can see through time. Okay. Also, the following use that it is also very common. It is, for example, when you want to talk about accomplishments. Okay, it means whenever you want to say that you have achieved something. An accomplishment, remember, is a goal that you have already fulfilled. So if you have an accomplishment that you want to talk about, normally we use it in the present perfect simple. For example, when you say a man has walked on the moon, that is, for example, a humanity accomplishment. When you say, for example, our son has learned how to read, it means that it is an individual accomplishment, for example. Or when you say, for example, doctor have cured many deadly diseases, well, it means that another humanity achievement. Okay, so when you want to talk about accomplishment or achievement, that it is pretty much the same, you are going to use present perfect simple. The following use, the one that you are going to have here, it is also, for example, when you have an uncompleted action that you are expecting to complete at a certain point, maybe in the future, maybe who knows when. Okay, for example, when you say James has not finished his homework yet, what does that mean? The action is incompleted, but maybe James is waiting, it is expecting to complete it at a certain point. Okay, or when you say, for example, Susan hasn't mastered Japanese, but she can communicate. What does that mean? That maybe she's not a master yet. She's going to complete that action at a certain point in time, but this is something incompleted that maybe they are expecting to complete, as I was telling you, in a certain point in time. Okay. Also, you are going to have, guys, when you want to talk about multiple actions at different times, what does that mean? That you have repeated the same action at different times. For example, when you say the army has attacked that city 5 times, it means that the same action has been done 5 times. Or when you say, for example, I have had 4 quizzes and 5 tests so far this semester, what does that mean? That you have repeated the same action of doing an exam 5 times. Okay, it means how many times you have done something. Also, you can say in the terms of quantity, you can talk about also, for example, when you mention how much you have made of something. It is not the same. Remember that in this part is how many times. On this side, we have how much you have made of something. For example, you can say, I have prepared 3 pizzas, I have cooked 20 cakes, and I have painted 2 walls in my room. This is about quantity, the number of things that you have done of something. That is the thing that you need to consider. Okay? And the grammar, well, the grammar is not that difficult. Remember that we are going to have our subjects, then the auxiliary verbs, they are going to be have or has, then we are going to have a verb in the past participle, for example, and you can say things like they have worked here for 20 years, for example, or Lisa has written 2 essays, for example. Okay, as of the negative, remember that we are going to have auxiliary haven't and then auxiliary hasn't, but anyway you need the verb in the past participle in front of them. And in the interrogative form, remember we are going to make the change between the auxiliary and the subject. Okay, and also you can add a question word if you need it, but remember that what we normally do here is that we change places between the auxiliary verb and your subject. Okay, so as you can see, the grammar is piece of cake. You are not going to have any trouble with this, I hope. If you have trouble, remember to write your notes so we can check it on class. And here, guys, this chart, the one that you have here, it is very important because, for example, you are going to find all of these time expressions when you are using present perfect. You can use, for example, just, already, still, yet, ever, never, for, and since, that they are going to be very, very common expressions that you are going to use with the present perfect. Okay, and as you can see here in the chart, you have the structures that you can use them with and the translation that you have for every single one of them. Also, you have in this chart where you are going to place them in the sentences that you are going to use, and you have here some examples. I am going to ask you to study. Maybe you can press pause in that precise moment. You are going to study the chart, and if you have any question about how to use every single one of these expressions, we are going to check it in class. Okay, so press pause right now, study your chart, observe if you have any question, and if you have it, please make your question during class in the following class, please. Okay, then we are going to continue, guys, with the present perfect continuous. They are not well, the present perfect continuous, it is not that different from the present perfect simple because it refers to the same, guys. You have an action that started in the past, and you can see that this action is still in progress, for example, in the present. What is the difference that you are going to find here? Well, that the present continuous usually is going to emphasize the duration. It is going to emphasize the amount of time that the action has been taking place. When you want to emphasize or when you want to remark that an action has been longer from the past to the present, you are going to use the present perfect continuous. Okay? You can remark, you can emphasize, for example, the duration from the past until now, and it can be any time you mention. For example, it can be 5 minutes, 2 weeks, since Tuesday, as you decide, but you want to emphasize that time, you are going to use then the present perfect continuous. For example, you are going to say things like, they have been talking for the last hour. As you can see here, we are emphasizing the last hour. When you have, for example, she has been working at that company for 3 years, what you are doing here is that you are emphasizing the duration for 3 years, okay? And as you can see here, we are emphasizing the duration. We are saying, you know what? From the past to the present, this action has been longer. That is the thing that we are doing here, okay? This is, for example, that one, the last one, it is for when you have the exact amount of time. There are times that we don't know the exact time, but we can use a not precise expression, a not precise time expression, such as recently, for example, lately, for ages, all of my life. For example, they are not exactly, how can we say it, that they are not stated, or we don't know exactly what is the duration, but anyway, we know that it is about a period of time that we want to remark. So, for example, you can use these ones. And you can use, for example, recently I have been feeling really tired. We don't know exactly when this started, but we know that it has been happening recently. Okay, the same with this one. For example, when you say she has been watching too much television lately, the same. We don't know when this action exactly started, but we know that it has been repeated for a period of time. Or when you say, for example, have you been exercising lately? Also, we are talking about a progressive action that from the past to the present, we want to remark the duration of it. Okay, also be very careful with this one. It is important to remember, guys, that when you have stated verbs, for example, these ones agree, doubt, like, hear, love, sound, understand, and so on. I am sure that you remember them. We are not going to use the continuous form with the stated verbs. Remember that we are going to use it only with action verbs. So, for example, if you have the stated verb have, it is incorrect that you use Sam has been having. That's not possible. This is incorrect if you use it. Remember that have is an stated verb, so you need to use the present form. You need to use Sam has had his car for 2 years, and this is correct. Okay? Remember then, with the stated verbs, it is not correct to use a continuous form. You are going to use the present form instead. It means the simple form, not the present, the simple form. You are going to use the simple one. Okay? And now that you know about this, you can check then the grammar. As you can see, it's not that difficult, but you need to be very careful because here again we are going to need three auxiliary verbs. Well, three verbs and two auxiliaries. For example, we are going to have the subject here. The auxiliary verb is going to be have or has. Then you are going to need another auxiliary that is going to be been, and then you are going to need an ing form verb. Okay, so you are going to have, for example, I have been living in this country for 27 years, or Linda has been looking for a new job recently. Okay, check this out. 1, 2, and 3 verbs. Two auxiliaries and your main verb in ing. Don't forget about it. As of the negative, remember that the only thing that is going to change is going to be that you are going to use haven't and hasn't. And in front of it, remember been and then the ing form. Don't forget that. 1, 2, and 3 verbs. You need them all. Okay? They haven't been waiting here for a long time. For example, Josh hasn't been writing his novel for 2 months. Check this out. 1, 2, and 3 verbs. That's what you need to do it. And the interrogative form, remember again, we are going to change places between the main auxiliary and the subject. And then you are going to need been and then ing form. For example, how long have you been studying English? And has Tom been teaching for a long time at this school? Okay, those are your formulas then, guys, for the present perfect continuous. Be very careful. Again, don't forget about your auxiliaries because you need to. Okay, and that is going to be everything, guys. This is everything about the present perfect. Remember, if you have any question, you need to drop the question there on the comments. And if you don't have any question, please drop your examples about the things that you have understood very well with this class, and the things that you haven't understood very well yet. Don't worry, we are going to check it next class. That's it for today's lesson, guys. Have a nice day, and I'll see you in our next class.